So the data, I know that you're a data person. Is it moving in the direction you want it to go?
So, yeah, so the NWA map assessment is what we took last week. There are makeups happening as we speak, but we took math on Wednesday, language arts on Thursday, and science on Friday. So over the weekend, the team put together ELA, language arts, and math data. So I think you guys, if you didn't get a copy, you can get a copy of the data sets.
We would love to have that, please.
And I'll just give you the big bullet points of it. Number one, the kids did well, which also means teachers did well, right? Teachers stepped up. And when I say did well, I mean better than the national average. So, you know, when you do better than the national average is what we need to do because we're behind, proficiency-wise, than the national average, it's good to see that growth. And then 3, the NES schools did significantly better than the non-NES. I mean, not just marginally better, as was reported, but significantly better.
Wow, I can't wait to see those numbers.
Yeah, they did. And so the 4th thing I'll say, because I want to make sure we don't over celebrate. I mean, we need to celebrate kids and we need to celebrate teachers, but this is just one data set. 4.5 months of work, one data set. That does not make a trend.
Right.
Okay, so at a district level, I'm happy about the results, but I'm also, you know, cautious that, look, we got a long road to hoe here. We got a long way to go.
Okay.
So we need to celebrate our kids when they do well and then continue to do the work.
Yeah. Speaking of the data, do you look at, I think this is what you're saying, but there's so many acronyms, so many.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
yeah,
it's okay, it's okay. But I do want to ask specifically, I know you guys, the students take DOLs every single day. Do you look at those numbers from across the NES schools?
No, that's too fine, too granular for me.
Yeah.
I make sure that they're doing DOLs when I go to the classrooms, but I don't look at the DOL. That's a great question that the teachers should be looking at. DOL is demonstration of learning. It is a mini quiz. I know you know that. I'm talking to your audience, so want to know. So teachers should be looking at those data every Thursday during a PLC, which is when they get together to talk about data.
Okay. Now, the other testing, I think you said NWA?
Yeah.
Now, what does that stand for? NWEA.
It's okay. Northwest Educational Association. I think that's what it means, but it's a company that has this nationally normed assessment. Over 6 million kids take this assessment. It's more and more districts are using NWEA because it can compare data across the country, so that you get a real idea of what the typical student should learn.
Right. So we got an opportunity to look at Fleming's, I think it was critical thinking, social studies, or art of thinking, thank you. Art of thinking, social studies, and I can't remember the other. But they took tests at the beginning of the year and mid-year, and we saw 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, especially 8th graders, their scores increased by a lot. I know that they just took the ELA.
Yeah, I'm eager to see what they did on the NWEA.
So did you see any results from any, or are kids
we only took it last week and we got the data over the weekend. So I'm looking at district level data, right? But having said that, I did get data from Wheatley and North Forest. Those are the only 2 I had time to gather, the team did, and they did really well. So we'll spend the next week or 2 looking at individual schools, especially the NES schools, to see how they did on the exam.
Overall, before the interview started, you talked a little bit more about what you saw and how hopeful it was. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, what keeps me going and what keeps a lot of people going, I think, is how the kids do. If the kids do well, I'm having a good time. If the kids not doing well, I'm not having a good time. So the kids did great. I mean, for me, internally, and for the team, I talked to the executive directors today. I just talked to the principal advisory committee about the NWA. scores tomorrow. All the principals will meet with me, and we're going to go over the scores, at least at the division, at the district level. There's no question the kids did great. And again, great means better than the national average, pretty significantly. And the NES schools, while the whole district did great, the NES schools did significantly better than the non-NES schools.
So
NES and NESA did significantly better than non-NES.
What does that say?
That says to me that we put in the right supports, that the program, the NES model, is helping underserved kids like it was intended to do. It would be surprising that it wasn't that way, right? We put in teacher apprentices, learning coaches, a curriculum that's high quality, that's tied more to the science of reading. We put in more assistant principals. We put in these differentiated model where a kid is behind gets more time. A kid who's ahead gets challenged. That is the way to run schools anyway, and this is really structured in the NES world. More engagement strategies, fewer discipline problems. Yes, they're going to do better. So that's what it tells me, we're on the right path. Again, I'm going to say it again, it's just one set of data, guys, so let's not break out any mission accomplished signs, but at the same time, we know we're on the right path, and we know that our kids deserve celebrating this week.
So absolutely, and we should celebrate this milestone. We are at the middle of the school year, though, so what do you anticipate seeing in the next few months?
Yeah, I think we have other data that we're going to look at. We're still looking at the we call it spot observations, or observations of teacher. We have data around that. We have, in the first 2 weeks of February, an independent review team going into the schools looking at the quality of instruction and assessing that. So we will have some data points. We also have, the DOLs continuing, the demonstrations of learning. We have unit exams. And then the next big assessment is the STAR assessment and the end-of-year NWEA end-of-year exams.
Okay.
You will recall that we did the beginning of the year NWEA test. I did report out to the board, but there was nothing to compare it to.
Right.
So we talked about it just briefly at a board meeting, but yes, we're going to also do, we've just done the middle of the year, and we will do an end of the year in May.
Okay.
Are they being tested at the beginning of the school year, the middle of the school year, and at the end of the school year? Can you explain that?
Yeah, that's so you will recall that we did the beginning of the year NWEA test. I did report out to the board, but there was nothing to compare it to.
Right.
So we talked about it just briefly at a board meeting, but yes, we're going to also do, we've just done the middle of the year, and we will do an end of the year in May.
Okay.
And the score, I'm sorry.
That's okay, no, it's good.
And so the data that you released about the A through F schools from 2022, what test was this, and what this is being compared to 2022? This has not being compared to this year.
Correct. So the A through F ratings that I talked about, that is from the 22-23 school year. So the STAR exam in the spring of 23 and the college career military readiness data from 22-23, that is what informs the current ratings, that A through F rating. So that's what we're talking about. Right. We're not talking about NWA or anything else like that. But that data is about last year.